Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome to our live today. Today is Sunday, August 9th at 8 o'clock, and we are about to start our live. We have a very special interview today and some really good topics. So I hope everybody is ready. I hope you got your snacks, your popcorn, and whatever you need to keep yourself entertained and are comfortable while you stay entertained watching this episode. Now, I want to thank everybody or welcome everybody back to Therapy Hub. This is before the trigger. If for those who don't know, or for those who is new tapping in, the series where we don't just talk about what happens when someone reaches their breaking point. Um, we talk about everything that happens before we get there. Okay. Now, because sometimes we focus so much on the individual that we kind of forget to look at the environment around them. Now, I'm talking about their family, their neighborhood, their schools, their access to housing, their access to recreation, their mental health supports, their sense of belonging. So today we're we're going to take the conversation from the individual to the community. Now, my guest today is a very special guest. All right. I had the opportunity to meet this gentleman in July when we had a community barbecue, and he came by and showed his support, and I got to meet him. So it was a pleasure. And since then, we've kept in contact, and I've asked him to join the show. Hopefully, he can join the panel if he has time. I know he's a busy guy, and it's campaign time right now. But if he has the time to join the panel, that would be great. And I'll ask him later on in the show. But this gentleman is a Ward 19 candidate. Okay, so he's actually and for those who don't know or doesn't don't know where Ward 19 is, it is in the Beaches in East York neighborhood, and he is running for city councilor. Okay, now James or Dan, sorry, my apologies. His name is James. Sorry, James Dann. His name. He has a first and last name that sounds like a first and last name, so I always get it confused. I apologize. James is his name. So James has spent 25 years working with the city of Toronto. Okay, and that's including managing parks, waterfront, public infrastructure, and that type of thing. So I really wanted to get him in our conversation to see what his input is in regards to gun violence and community engagement and working and creating a better environment. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome James to Therapy Hub.
Hello, hello. Can we
We're
do we
gonna
have
get
good
you in.
audio? Do we want to
Yes.
do an audio check?
Yeah, let's do an audio check actually. I want to do an audio check too because my mic is not on. So let me get
How are we doing now? How's that?
great too. My mic is now on. I need to have
Okay.
it on. I jumped into the live a little too quick and didn't check on my microphone. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's good to have good to have good sound and visuals. It's important
That's
because
right.
you're what you're talking about is important as well. So it's people want to listen with the best possible sound and visuals that we can give them, Darue. So yeah, thank you for having me on your podcast, and terrific. I welcome the opportunity to chat with you. And as you said, we had a good connection there initially, and I'm sure we'll have a
Mhm.
great connection on this podcast as well.
We will. We will. Thank you so much for coming. Now, James, I want before we get into the politics or anything of that nature, I want to talk about James Dan, the person, okay, and who you are
Sure.
outside of the campaign. You let everybody know.
Yeah. So the the best way to sort of get into this, I'm going to go back in time a little bit. In that my grandfather was born in Beaches, East York, My dad and my mom were teachers in Beaches East York. They still live in Beaches East York. I was able to buy a house. I was fortunate enough to buy a house that the bank and I own here in Beaches East York, and I
The
raised my
bank
three
owns
kids
most of the
here.
homes.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
Let's not kid ourselves. But I grew up in this area, and I enjoyed a lot of athletics in this area, and I went to school, and I raised my kids here. I was a volunteer coach in the area.
Oh,
I still
nice.
take part in a lot of athletics in the ward. I play volleyball, I play hockey, I play squash. I run, I bike in the community,
Yes.
and I've just been very actively involved in this community as as a dad, as someone who's taken active involvement in making the city a better place.
Mhm.
And it's something I strongly believe in and something that I'm going to continue to do so.
And I believe that that you will. I believe that you will, based
Thank you.
on your background. Yeah. Now you spent 25 years working for the city.
Yeah.
What made you decide that now was the time to run for city councilor?
Yeah. Thank you for that. The the great thing, the very fortunate thing that I had was I worked for the city, but I had the greatest job there. I ran the waterfront parks, and the advantage of that was that I was able to, for a portion of my job, work and live in the same community. So my portfolio went from the waterworks in the east all the way over to the Humber Bay Bridge, everything south of the lake shore. That was the eastern beaches, the western beaches, the island, the ferry docks, Tommy Thompson Park, the Martin Goodman Trail, the new Corktown Common, the new mouth of the river, Don River Park that we were building,
Mhm.
the music garden. I just had a lot of success, and having all this success is, as a bureaucrat, is a challenge. I mean, the city's a challenging place,
Yeah.
and I knew that the success that I had wasn't accidental. I have a get it done philosophy of public service. It's something that I strongly believe in, and I
Right.
knew that I would be able to do even more as a city councilor. So it's something that's definitely driven me to throw my hat in the ring and to really try to make all of the ward a better place to live. When I was
Mhm.
running the waterfront parks, the impact in this section of the community, this section of the city was minor things that became major things. Bringing in the winter stations program, which brought art and creativity to us in the winter months. Um, Fixing the entirety of the boardwalk so that it was level, so that people could push a stroller on it and walk on it. Getting the Martin Goodman Trail plowed in the winter so that we could use it year round. Refurbishing washrooms, painting pickleball lines on courts for the off-season use, bringing in world-class horticulture, bringing in world-class standards, the blue flag beaches. So I have a history of getting things done, and I hope to continue to do so on a broader scale, not just waterfront parks, but on award-wide issues.
Absolutely. Now, you describe someone who spent or describe yourself, sorry, as someone who spent years taking care of this neighborhood. What does community mean to you personally?
Well, I've been very fortunate to be not only really entrenched within my local community. I was the
Yeah.
president of the Bombay Beach Club. I've coached in the area.
Right.
I've volunteered in the area. I've done so many things within my own area, but I also, by running other parks for local communities from as
Hmm.
diverse fields as the High Park community, the Parkdale community, the Moss Park community,
Hmm.
the Toronto Islands. You really get the sense that when there's community leadership, they're not all they're not all as different as they think they are. I mean,
Right.
this city is made up of tremendous communities and tremendous neighborhoods,
Yeah.
and what community means to me is that you have neighbors that you know, neighbors that you will support, people that you are involved with, a community where you are wanting to make it better, wanting to improve. So much that's in there, and and this is citywide. I've seen this. People take tremendous pride in their community and tremendous enjoyment in being a member of their own community. So I've seen it citywide, and I've been very fortunate to be involved extensively. Both my parents were school teachers. I was brought up
Mhm.
with a culture of public service, a culture of volunteering. You are going to deliver the community newspaper. You are going to help shovel snow. You are going to rake leaves. You are going to be involved. And so I've had that from a very young age.
Now, you've lived in the beaches for generations. You've raised your family in Ward 19. How has the community changed since you were younger? Have you seen any changes significantly?
Yeah. Yes. I think I mean, the economics of the city go way beyond just the beach. I mean, the beaches, East York, they're two areas that have grown, become far more affluent. When I was growing up, Queen Street had about a third of its stores all boarded up. There was Glen Manor, that was a really, well-to-do street in Monroe Park, and some of these old, old beach streets. But people weren't buying millions and millions of dollars of homes. There wasn't the division between those who have and those who have not, to the extreme that it's grown. That's more of a citywide
Mhm.
issue, but it's certainly hit, with the affluent that's come into the beaches area. You've also seen the sort of development of East York has gone from, strictly bungalows to people blowing up the top of the houses, and, two, three-story homes. Public housing has become more of a challenge within just the division, really, I guess, of economic stratospheres, has been something that has been really something that's become apparent. Um, I mean, we can get into things beyond the sort of socioeconomics.
Mhm.
There's been some environmental things that are obviously very concerning.
Yeah.
We're definitely facing a crowded city, and the burden is felt across the city. But I think the elements of
That's like the green
um,
belt, right? So the green belt is
well,
one of, I think,
yeah,
one
I
of them.
mean, sure. I guess you just look at, like, 54 years old now, so that you're talking about a big span of time where
Mhm.
you don't really have, a division between, where Scarborough ends and, the suburbs start. It's all continuous now. Same within North York and Etobicoke. Like, there's no green buffer around our city. There's the lake to the south, but it's just denser and denser and denser. So traffic has
Mhm.
become, a major challenge within our city. It's one of the major things that you hear from people, just trying to get around. The streetcars that used to work effectively, they're no longer really moving people A to B very smoothly. Um, and then, you look at the real positives that have come in, and, they are massive. The massive positives that have come in for our city. It is an amazing city. There, it is vibrant. To have world class theater and art and sport. I'm not saying that this didn't happen in the past, but to have it at a globally recognized level is an
Mhm.
incredible accomplishment for people who have gone before us to make this a great city to live in.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, this show's called Therapy Hub, and we like to talk about, you know, things that we go through as people every day, and how we can challenge some of those things and cope with them, right? So, and
Sure.
what we do is we work on different strategies. Sometimes I leave the community home for homework and that type of thing. So, the type of conversations we engage.
Yeah.
Now, we talked about something called the breaking point. And this whole series before the trigger kind of summarizes. I think we kind of did it based on the salsa shooting, after the salsa shooting, and then we kind of like summarized points on where some people may be missing on what's going on with some of the youth today and what's been going on with
Yeah.
the gun violence. So I
Yeah.
thought the series would be a great thing to start, because as a community, I think understanding together is the best way to grow a community. I've always stressed in my shows that in order for you to raise a child, it takes a community effort, and a good raising upbringing of a child, because a parent can't be there 24 hours a day around their child. There's some point where the child has, I mean, the parent has to break away, take care of the responsibility. The child has some form of um, grooming to do during that process. And when that happens, they can lead astray. Now, when the community is involved and we have leaders and we have school members and teachers, everybody that's all in this together as a collective effort, I think that's what raises a child and what brings a better community. So we
Okay.
talk a lot on Therapy Hub about these things. Um,
Yeah.
so the breaking point in regards to, because we wanted to know what was the actual point and what takes
Mm.
somebody to pull the trigger, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, what role do you think a person's environment plays in their mental and emotional health? Because you are amazing at working with the environment, changing the infrastructure. So I think
Yeah.
this is a great role for you and this is a great opportunity for you. What do you think what role do you think the person's environment plays in their mental and emotional health?
Yeah, it is everything. If let's put ourselves into that kind of circumstance that would lead to those up. You're talking
Mhm.
about the shooting in St. Clair. I mean, we've been in the city long enough that we know that's unfortunately not the only shooting that's taken place. That
That's right.
the highlight of that in the dramaticness of that whole event is that it took place in a public setting.
Right.
We were very unfortunate that people for a variety of reasons, uh, have access to all of the guns and the gun violence, and there's mental health. There's all kinds of factor in that. But I
Yes.
look at just the challenge that people would feel in a desperate enough way that they didn't have the support, they didn't have any hope, they didn't have any optimism. And when you eliminate those things from people, 9 out of 10 times, more than probably 9 out of 10 times, it's men. And
Yeah.
that desperation of I have nothing to live for.
Mhm.
It's really a tragedy of our society. And I think of the time I spent working in Moss Park and Regent Park communities.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, a lot of people ended up dying who shortly after the time that I knew them as 14, 15, 16 year olds.
Right. Yeah.
And so that
Unfortunate.
period of time with young men, there was a lot of I took kids away on a canoe trip one time, and I remember asking them, like, how many of you have an immediate father, brother, uncle who is incarcerated? And
Right.
all but one of the kids' hands went up. How many of you have a positive male role model in your life who you could go to? And few of the hands went up.
Mhm.
um, and these are kids who were in public housing who were tremendous people. Like, I had so much fun and they were great. But they had a lot of disadvantages going. They had not necessarily a stable home environment, not a lot of incentives for when they slip to get brought back up by a community.
Mhm.
We were doing what we could, and from a community recreation standpoint, to provide, hey, there will be basketball on from 4 to 5
You're
every
right.
day. Come to the gym,
Yeah.
4 to 5:30, basketball's
Yeah,
on,
every
like,
day I remember,
every
man.
day,
Like,
every
yeah.
day, right? And that got us the kids there.
Mhm.
And then there was different things that would happen, right? Like, you'd find out a lot about these kids' lives, whether they had
Yeah.
to go back for dinner, whether there was dinner, whether they were, all that kind of food security is another issue that,
Yes.
that's like, if I'm hungry, I'm miserable to be around. Like,
Mhm.
end stop. If I'm not rested, I'm miserable to be around.
You're right.
And if you have that kind of challenge day
Hangry
after day after
hungry.
day, yeah, right. You're hangry,
Yeah.
and so that hangry, and not well rested, and
Yeah.
but that's not leading us to gun violence. Like, the difference is that you're getting a combination of factors, and none of these
Yes.
things are, it's no one thing. It's like grains of sand, right? We're dealing with the downstream effects of cuts to mental health.
Yep.
I, during COVID, it was disastrous. The number of people who got let out of mental health care, who
Hmm.
were released from incarceration, who needed mental health care.
Yeah.
There were all kinds of addiction issues. The province has cut all kinds of funding in those areas, and I'm not blaming present conservative governments. I'm going back further than that. If you
Right.
if you look at the cuts that Mike Harris brought in, and if you're looking at a downstream effect of 20 years, there's very serious impacts here.
That's a.
And
I have a.
and
Sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, just to finish off that, I mean, so let's, we go back 20, 25 years, you start eliminating these supports. It takes a long time to build this stuff up, right? Like, it
Right.
takes a long time to build up a proper mental health system, a proper time to build up addictions research, a long time to build up youth centers, and a long time to build up public housing. It can get cut very quickly.
Hmm.
And when those cuts hit, it may not be a direct line, but from there to a fentanyl crisis. It may not be a direct line from there to a gun violence, but there's a lot of commonalities there that
Hmm.
are affecting people that, they no longer have a supportive home. They no longer have access to mental health. Uh, they no longer have proper assistance with education. Like, these are major issues that lead to disastrous effects.
Yeah. No. Absolutely. And I wanted to ask, just a minute ago, the whole Mike Harris thing. I know a lot of politicians, they kind of take it back to that generation or that era of the Mike Harris era. Now I know that he did a lot. He did a lot. Majority of the cutbacks that are still, even with, I think, the Ontario
Yeah.
Disability Support
Yeah.
Program. A lot of those programs are still cut. Now, I have a question, and why is it taking so long to reimburse those
Mm,
programs
mm.
back?
Uh, Mike Harris also sold the 407, so let's
Yeah, yeah, that too.
let's not forget that little piece that has caused
And
traffic.
it's been privately owned ever since.
Oh yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
the Spaniards are just rubbing their hands together gleefully with raking in all our money.
Yeah.
Um, okay, the question is, you posed it. It makes it sound so simple, and I
Hmm.
appreciate that because you asked a complex question in a really simple way. But just like, why does it take so long? Why does it take so long? And the challenge is that when you take these things and you cut them,
Hmm.
you're gutting it, and when
Right.
you're building it back up, it takes a lot longer. And the reason it takes time is because you have to have credible funding for a long enough period of time that you can do it properly as opposed to patching holes.
Okay.
So a lot of what's happened is this cutting has just been patching holes, patching holes, patching holes. And without the big dollars in place, you can't dream in a way that makes it, like, if you came out right now and said, we are going to eliminate homelessness in the province of Ontario.
Great.
You know, it doesn't matter how we're going to do it, but we're going to do it. And you came in at the provincial level and said, we will eliminate homelessness. Well, you'd start funding it in a way that, that would take away from something else. It would take away
Right.
from roads, or, or you'd have to raise up taxes.
Right.
And you would have to get people buying in Sudbury and Kenora and Kingston and all over the place, where they're saying, yes, this is a good idea. And then you'd also have to kind of have the other provinces saying, hey, like, we better get outside here, because otherwise
Mhm.
people from Quebec would pour in and people from Manitoba would pour in. And I mean, that's basically what happened in California and San
Mhm.
Francisco. They said, we're going to eliminate this, and they just poured money at it, and it didn't solve the problem. It just accelerated the problem because everyone came from all over the place and went to San Francisco. So
Right.
it takes time, it takes money, and it takes leadership, and it takes some tough decisions that cross over between the federal government, the provincial government, and the city government. And where we have that disconnect right now, we're feeling the burden in city day to day, when you're walking around and you're seeing people who are in fentanyl crisis, when you're having extreme gun violence. We're trying to solve
Right.
this at a city level, and there's definitely a role that the city needs to play, but it goes so far beyond that into needing coordination between a city, a province, and the federal government.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Now, I mentioned before about a collective effort and raising a child in a community. Now, I wanted to know if you believe if a neighborhood can actually contribute to someone's sense of belonging or isolation.
Oh, absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah, no. I mean that's a fantastic thing. I mean,
Hmm.
you do not, I mean, you do not know the value of people knowing one another and knowing your neighbors. Like if your neighbor knows your name and you know your neighbor's name and your mailman's name and your grocery store person's
Yeah,
name and your, like, it is
it's the best
fabulous.
feeling. Yeah,
It's the best feeling, right?
yeah,
So and you don't have to have money to do that. You don't have to have you could be living in a great apartment building that, is deemed, on assisted living or whatever it is. But if you know those people who you're surrounded with and you've made an effort to do that, and those people are absolutely, that's gold.
that's what made me
Uh
change my environment and stay here, and it's because
great,
of
great,
the welcoming and
great.
the embracing, and it just made me want to do more and more and more for the community
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it's just I feel more welcomed and I feel like this is a place of belonging, and I think that's
That's yeah.
very important.
Well, you're making it better too, right? Like if the
Yes,
topics
thank
you're
you.
discussing,
Right,
they're not always comfortable for people.
you're right,
People
exactly.
people know it needs to be talked about, but they're not always comfortable. So if you're saying, "Hey, like we're talking about, what makes the city," I always having kids. I have 3 kids, and I want to make the city and the ward better for them than what I got.
Hmm.
And I got I had a great childhood and a great career, and like, but I want to make it better.
Yeah.
And that's part of being what you're doing. You're saying, hey, there's some issues and I want to make it better by talking about it. I want to get people involved, and we want to make this a better city, a better environment, better
Yes.
understanding, more compassionate. It's good. I think it's good work, and I'm happy to be here today.
And we're happy to have you, James. Like honestly, we're really happy to have you. Now, I wanted to know what happens when a young person doesn't feel like that, and they feel like they don't have anywhere to go or anyone to talk to or anything positive to be a part of. Because I've been down that road.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, as an optimist, I hope that we
Hmm.
can, I hope that we can find those people before it goes too far.
Yes.
Because we're all going to go through periods where, on the roller coaster of life, you're at the top and you're at the bottom, and hopefully you catch somebody at the bottom and bring them back up.
Yeah.
And that takes good mentors, it takes good friends, it takes good compassion. um, it takes sometimes a beautiful walk, a beautiful setting, a beautiful park setting, a beautiful, something to pull that person out of the feeling like there's nothing, then they have no hope, because that depth of despair is a reality for a lot of people. I was just reading today the number one, uh, in America right now, the major issue is no longer mass gun violence, but the major issue is men killing themselves with guns, because it's such an effective weapon, and so effective when you're trying to kill yourself to have access to
Hmm.
handguns. The state of
Mental
Wyoming,
health
it's
is at its all time high. It's at its all
oh,
time high.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's, we're under a lot of stress, and,
Hmm.
that's everybody. You walk outside and there's forest fires and the air looks gross, and,
You feel like you want to choke.
well, you're like, what kind of world am I living in? Like climate change is real. And then
Yeah.
you're stuck in traffic and you can't go anywhere. And, groceries are super expensive and you can't get a job. And like these things can all compound on people.
Yes.
And if you add that into your home situation is terrible, or you're fighting with addiction, or you're fighting with any sense of sort of general health and wellness and security, or there's a lot that can bring people down. And
Yeah.
so what do you do, right? How do we make it so that we get beyond that true despair to a hope that a where I'm going will get better. And maybe it is that 4 to 5:30 basketball that is going to be at the rec center Monday to Friday.
Yeah.
Maybe it is that opportunity to know that the washroom that you're going to go into in a park is clean. Maybe it is that there's good horticulture. Maybe it is that there's a job for you when you're 16 to 24, where you're going to actually get a livable minimum wage.
Right.
Maybe it is knowing that there is a doctor that you can talk to and get mental health support. All of
Hmm.
those things, it might be all of them, it might be one of them that make it so that you get beyond that feeling of just complete despair.
Yeah. Do you believe that investing in the communities is one of those things? And is that something that you're planning on doing and investing more into your communities?
Yeah. So, uh, one of the really misconceptions around this ward that I'm in of Beaches East York is that
Hmm.
um, it's becoming less caring. Yeah, I completely contest that, because I
Yeah.
am knocking on so many doors. I've knocked on 17,000 doors already. And
Good for you, man.
thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I'm
Mhm.
wearing out shoes. Um,
Yeah.
but um, but what I'm hearing, and it's a real shift in that people are starting to say, we need to start investing in supportive housing.
Hmm.
And I have never heard that roll off people's tongues in some of the Beaches East York area that's way more well to do. Never,
Yes.
never heard that.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that is not something that people were like, hey, this is, but people are looking at it as an investment.
Right.
They're saying, well, yeah, if I know that I can give somebody a place to live,
Hmm.
I'm not going to have to be, dealing with the downstream effect where they're living in a bus shelter, riding my subway all the time, just riding it back and forth to stay warm. Hopefully, they're not going to be in the same sort of drug situation. So people are
Or
people are
drugs, or
coming
trying to
around to,
steal my purse, or whatever the
yeah,
situation is.
yeah, right. So,
Yeah.
like, as a taxpayer common good,
Hmm.
let's give somebody an opportunity, give them a leg up. So there's that
Absolutely.
investment. Again, knocking on the doors. I'm talking about some of the housing that's being sort of just thrown at us.
Hmm.
Maine and Danforth right now,
Yeah.
there's 7,000 units planned. Like 7,000
That's
units.
a lot. That's good.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
it's great, but the school has a sign up that says there's no room at the school. There's not a new community center. There's
Right.
not a new access to the subway.
Ah.
There's not a new pool. There's
Hmm.
not a new library.
Hmm.
So, you know, we're in favor of housing because people need a place to live. But
Yeah.
man, we better bring in all the other things that
That's right. Yeah, that a
make it livable,
community
right?
that a community yeah,
Yeah,
to make a
yeah.
community livable. Because you could throw
That's
some
exactly.
you give somebody a house to live in, but then
uh
what is there to do? I think that
That's
that's what
exactly.
happens in the
That's exactly
community
it.
housing, where you
Yeah,
give people
yeah,
housing and all they're doing is just sitting outside, and
yeah,
then you have, numbers in community housing, and you have a little bit of an issue there. But
yeah.
yeah, but you're right. By providing, some more, water parks or pools or recreational centers,
All of them.
basketball courts. One thing I must
Childcare
say,
centers,
we
the
need more
senior
basketball
centers.
courts in the beaches. I must say that.
I was down at, yeah, oh, of course, but
Mhm.
it's not the only amenity that we need more of,
No,
right? Like,
no.
I think, excuse me, basketball courts 100%.
Hmm.
I was down at the East Toronto Pickleball Association, was down at the new pickleball courts, and they're rammed, right? People are just
Yeah.
like, and I love my pickleball people.
Yeah,
I love you,
yeah.
but man, they love their pickleball, right?
Yeah, I
Like, so
mean,
that
yeah,
so they
pickleball.
so it's packed. It's packed. But
Yeah,
that's what you want. You want your parks active. You want
that's right.
all your parks active and vibrant, and you want people to be using them all the time. And baseball players tell me, "Oh, we need more baseball, and skateboarders. We need more skate parks, and pickleball players. We need more pickleball, and lawn bowlers. We need more lawn bowling. Like,
Yeah.
we need as much recreational opportunities that we can within parks.
Yeah.
I built the disc golf course down in Woodbine Park and was involved with the building of the second one. Um, I built them across the waterfront, and it was a great, cheap, like super low entry fee,
Hmm.
making use of parks, and putting up a proper court with a proper basketball net. It's a great
Yes.
addition to a park, but there's so many things that you can do to improve access to parks and keep them vibrant. An
Yes.
ideal park for me it has your basketball courts for you. I know you want that, but it's also
Yeah.
got a dog
I
park,
love my
and it's
hoop.
got yeah, yeah, well, that's good though, right? But I want it, and I also want to see a movie night going on, and a
Yes. Yes.
bonfire, and a children's playground,
Yes.
and a clean washroom, and tremendous horticulture, and it's just humming. It's got to
Yeah.
be that place where so much is happening, and it's okay. It's okay to put your picnic blanket down and just sit
Yes.
and get out of your apartment, get out of your house, and go to the park and have some fun, and throw a
Hmm.
ball, and like that is for me an ideal park, and it's somewhere where
Okay.
you go and it's going to be safe and clean, and the garbage is going to be taken away, and
Yeah.
like that kind of vibrancy. When we're talking about community, those hubs, when you create them, Daru, they create magic,
Yeah.
because you can be any age. You can be pushing your kids on the swing, talking to another parent. You're not looking at your phone. You're like, oh,
Hmm.
this is my son. Oh, this is my daughter. Oh, great. Yeah, Oh, well, I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Magic.
Yeah.
Magic, right? Just absolute magic. And then
It's the best
and then
feeling.
all it is the best feeling. And then
Yeah.
it takes over the park in such a positive way that the negative activities that can happen with parks, people don't know where else to go. They're not
Hmm.
going to go to that park. They're like, I'm
Hmm.
not going to go spray paint that building. My sister goes there. I'm not going to go break beer bottles there. My mom and dad go there. I bring my dog here. What are you doing? Like, go, take that action somewhere else. And so that's the kind of community that we want to be fostering and encouraging. And it's small things to get to that level,
Hmm.
but it makes a massive difference on the local communities.
So I mean, the city can solve problems. I don't think the city can solve everybody's problems, but I think that's a part of the issue too. That can help with our growth and our mental health and our emotional health. Thank you for that. Now
Yeah, for sure.
I want to get into something else that's also very very important, and that is our and I'll tell it's important because you're a father, I'm a father, and
Yeah.
that's our youth today. All right. Now, the youth and prevention, something that I've kind of been focusing on throughout my years of being a community activist, and public speaker and that type of thing. Now, what do you believe Toronto could be doing better for the young people before they get into any trouble? We just mentioned the parks, and I think
Yeah.
that's one. Well, what else do you think could be a factor?
Uh, well, there's a lot there that, I mean, the park access is great. Employment access is another really
Employment's big.
important
Hmm.
piece. You need to have youth opportunities for. I love the volunteering program through the high schools. I think that is a great gateway into so many things,
Yes.
be it a combination of community, of getting involved with something, realizing that volunteering is probably going to be one of the most rewarding things that you can do,
Hmm.
but also getting money in your pocket, right? So that volunteering leading to a job where you can actually get paid is, I think, a really vital piece. And
Yeah.
the city has done a good job of sort of assisting with employment and providing opportunities. The combination of investment that is required, not only in giving people jobs, but also just providing actual access to youth programs that youth want. So, there's a combination of sport, there's a combination of dance, music, art, but geared towards what youth are actually wanting. And that, anything that we can do to give youth a sense of community within their own community, that shows, you're part of a bigger picture here. The faster we can get people off of phones and cell phones, the better.
Mhm.
It's massively detrimental. It's super addictive.
Mhm.
And the statistics on particularly young women and cell phones is social media is disastrous. I mean, they've proven it. And I think with young men and young women and youth, that the isolation that they start to withdraw. So anything we do to encourage that, um, and it's a lot of things that the city can be doing through the recreation, through social services, through free programming. I mean, a lot of
Yeah.
what challenges people as this extreme barrier is it's access to something that's fun and free. Like
Mhm.
you're not getting into a bar yet. Not that anyone's drinking anymore, but you're not going into you're not able to go and do that. So you need to provide that kind of creative, um, free festival programming that's working for a combination of ages, and for sure able to have youth go out and enjoy, and not be seen as threatening. Like, they're just young people, right? They're young people, and
Mhm.
they want to gather, and they want to congregate, and they want to have some fun. On that's the spring summer festival season, but also like year round. Like, give people a place to go out and meet and gather without it being threatening to the local community.
Yeah, and speaking of that, I want to get into community safety now. And because when people hear community safety, some immediately think policing, right? They
Sure.
think, uh, you know, police outside, arresting people, or whatever the case is. But it's far more than that. Community safety starts also with us, as people, as citizens.
Yeah.
Now, do you think we're sometimes too focused on what happens after something happens instead of preventing it?
Oh, I mean, the most recent ad that said, we're going to build more jails in this province just appalled me. As far as like dealing with things, I mean, after the fact, like, come on, there's
Yeah.
so much that goes into making a community safe. um, and I
Hmm.
think let's look at the physical environment too. Like, you have to have the city doing the city's job well. The
Yeah.
whole broken window theory, once you let that go, the broken window leads to graffiti, leads to broken bottles, leads to, it just spreads, right? So you have to fix the small stuff and do the small stuff well. You have to maintain lighting, you have to maintain the physical environment, you have to maintain a clean and beautiful city. Let's
Hmm.
start with that. The city does that. Grass is still going to grow, has to be cut, the leaves have to be picked up, the snow has to be plowed, lights have to be repaired. That clean and beautiful city is a starting point. When we start talking about having a physical environment that is clean and beautiful, and
Hmm.
that is going from the public sphere into now into recreation centers, it's going into that is part of community safety. I mean,
Hmm.
it's not a dot that doesn't get connected. If you think that you're going to be able to always walk into a community building and feel safe, that is community safety.
Yes.
If you know that you are able to walk in there and report something that doesn't feel safe that's outside, that's community safety. And
Yes.
that could be a library you're walking into, a community center,
A school.
a
Yeah.
school,
Yeah.
sure. Those, that kind of public building. If you feel that you're able to do that and it's going to respond to, that's great.
Hmm.
If you're able to, see that your local police force is also something that you can interact with on a day-to-day level, where they're not arresting people in your community,
Hmm.
that's community safety. If you
Yes.
see police officers who are riding bicycles, walking in the street, actually talking with people, that's community safety.
Hmm.
The police are part of our solution for a safe city.
Yes.
We'd be naive to think otherwise. They are definitely required. There are things that
Yeah, they're needed.
are 100%. There's
Yes.
a 911 call. Like, someone's broken into my
I
house, I'm not
agree.
going to call a neighbor.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. Right, right.
there's things that happen, right? So you
Yeah.
you do need the police. Where I think the real challenge is right now with our police force is, our police force is dealing with a combination of a drug crisis and a mental health crisis.
Mhm.
So, when we're going into work as police officers, you and I get in the car, and our first four calls, we're taking someone to the hospital. We're having to wait with them in a hospital until they can be seen by a medical system that's dealing with a drug crisis.
Right.
That means that 911 call, that someone, I don't know, let's say
Takes
their
away a
garage.
police officer from doing something else.
It takes away
Yeah,
from them from doing policing. So
police. Yeah.
they're dealing with it as well, and there's limited resources. So I've been in a conversation just in the last week. I was up in East York, and I was talking to. We had a long conversation at the door. And the woman said to me, "Would you be in favor of cutting policing,
Hmm.
cutting the police budget?" And I said, "No."
Right.
And we got into it, and I was talking to her, and I said, "Look, like the police officers who I know, they're not out solving crimes. They're not out arresting bad guys. They're driving around dealing with people who need mental health care, and there's no one. They've reached that point where there's no one else who's coming to the door, so they're dealing with a mental health issue. They're dealing with massive drug addiction issues.
Hmm.
That's what we have our policing doing. Like
Yeah.
we've got to be investing in that
Community
kind of a.
workers and more
Totally,
people. And
totally,
I
and
say
mental
this all the
health and
time.
mental
Yeah.
health workers, right? You gotta
Yeah.
like the police officers don't want to be doing that, but who
Yeah.
else are we gonna call? Like we're
Right.
not gonna call, we can't like you can't when someone's off their medication or they're in distress or like the police get called.
Right.
So that whole side of what's gone on to sort of community safety, that
Hmm.
burden that's gone on to our Toronto Police Services, we need to be investing. And that gets back to what we were talking about earlier of investing within people who are able to compassionately care
Yep.
for people who are both struggling with both mental health and addictions. And maybe, you want to make sure that those people are safe as well. Like I don't want to see someone going into a situation where they probably need a police officer with them,
Hmm.
but not always. Sometimes
Yeah.
those people just need some help. They need to figure out, okay, you can't have your tent here, and we're going to find you housing here, and we're going to find you the mental health help here.
Yes.
And ideally, you have to invest in those things so that you're able to accommodate those people to get them into a place where they're in a better spot.
Hmm.
So it's not a 911 call. So it's not just leading to incarceration.
What do we do with the people who don't want to go anywhere? We know some people that are homeless based on their own decision because they
Yes.
just don't want to pay bills or don't want to live,
Yeah.
and or maybe be hard for them to even get started at some way. How do we
Yeah.
accommodate those people?
You don't have to spend too many nights in -40 before you're starting to change your mind that way. Like
Yeah.
living rough is easy at this time of year where the weather's hospitable, but
Hmm.
unfortunately, we still have a lot of people that end up dying on our streets.
Yeah.
And so, um, my issue has always been when we're getting back to parks and public spaces, we need those for our collective mental health. And if I don't
Yes.
feel like I can have my family, my friends, my community
Safe in the
go to a
park.
park, safe in the park, because quite often, the people who are living in this park, that they're they're not necessarily the people you want living next door to you.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to sweeping generalization and say that they're all bad, but there is a lot of mental health issues that go along with that.
Yes.
There is a lot of abuse of parks trees and firewood and unsafe burning, and where are they going to the washroom? Like like that. So if people start abusing parkland that way, then I have real issue with that. Similarly with bus shelters, people living in bus
Hmm.
shelters, like we need that bus shelter. Bus shelters were not built so that someone can live in it. They're built so someone can shelter out of the wind and the rain,
Hmm.
waiting for the bus. So what do you do with someone who never wants to leave a park? I mean, I can be compassionate to a certain level, but it's not living in our public spaces. I think that our city is under too great a burden right now, where we have a collective need of those public spaces, and it's not set up for people to be camping. Well, I
Hmm.
don't see it turning into. I don't feel that that's solving the solution because the person who's in that tent, hey, there's some beautiful parts of our city that we've turned into parks. Beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful, but they're not for a tent. And
Right.
the reason that we have invested billions and billions of dollars over the years in these assets of these parks is that, we need them. We all need them. And
Hmm.
it's not for us to live in, but it's for us to make the most of, to keep active, to keep vibrant, to use, and then to allow it to not be somewhere where people are living.
Well, how do we make these communities safer though, without making these same people feel like they're being constantly watched, or they're being treated as criminals, or they're not being treated as equal? Because we know that
Uh, Go ahead, expand on that if you
because
want.
like we know that some of these people, like I said, they have a choice. They make the choice of whether or not they want to be homeless or they not. There's some people that don't have the choice, that they, got down on their luck and they just
Sure.
can't get back on their feet because it's hard, and they're just not in a stable mindset. And now, like, we went back to professionals and that type of thing. Now, I just kind of feel like, where how do we make them feel like more, like less or more of people and less of criminals?
Yeah, it's not so much the criminality of things, it's this isn't the place for it. So,
Hmm.
I
Good
mean,
point. Good point. That's a very good
and
point.
it's
Time and
yeah,
place for everything, right?
yeah, a little bit, right? Like we're
Yeah.
just, like, you want to have, yeah, ideally you have a shelter system or a supportive housing system that someone is actually going to say, hey, you know what, I don't mind this. I know what you're saying. There is a portion of people that doesn't matter what you present to them. They're like, that's not me,
Hmm.
and not me right now. But my point, and I will, I'll stick with this. And I know it's not a
Hmm.
popular one, but I really maintain that the park system is not going to solve the housing crisis that we have.
Absolutely
It's
not.
not going to solve the mental health crisis that we have,
No.
and it's not going to solve the drug issue that we have. So I don't see the merit in allowing people to live in our park system,
Yeah.
because all of that, if you allow that to start, you create a disastrous zone where people say, well, this is permissible. And then one tent leads to five, leads to tarps, leads to encampments, and it leads to a zone where you're really making that local park that people have cherished and moved close to and desired and played all their sports and walked with their dog and raised their kids, no longer theirs. So now we've taken a very small number of people who are struggling with all of those things that I listed, be it, addiction, mental health issues, or not proper housing, and we've compromised the whole of the park. I don't think the trade-off is one that we want as a society to go down that way.
That's a good point. Now, what do you say to residents who are generally afraid of this violence, or afraid of these individuals in the neighborhood? What do you say to the residents?
Um, well, they're not always wrong. So, I mean, the challenge that you're facing with anyone who is dealing with a mental health or addiction crisis, um, without the proper medication, or if they are on drugs, they are not themselves. So there's definitely better treatment for people that's
Hmm.
out there. But I definitely think people are wise to be concerned about people who are living in their parks, living outside. There's
Hmm.
also a huge percentage of people. I think the number is 12,000 homeless people right now presently in the city of Toronto.
Hmm.
Um, you know, of that 12,000, I'm not by any stretch saying that there's 12,000 people who are requiring, mental health and drug issues. But I would say it's a disproportionately higher number than your average people who aren't living, that are homeless.
Hmm.
So yeah, there's wise for people to be cautious of that. And again, that gets back to what I was talking about.
Knocking on
People are
doors and
knocking on doors. People are supportive of supportive
supporting the
housing.
investing housing. Yeah, I was going to say
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
because 12,000 people is not insignificant, right? Like
Hmm.
there are literally, small towns in Ontario that have fewer people than that, and we have them living in our city. 12,000 people that need care and need additional care, and it's not just emergency rooms, riding the subway and living rough in our tents. They've got to get better. We've got to get better as a city,
Hmm.
and we can do that. I'm totally optimistic that we can do that. I think that the I think that the general mindset of people provides enough compassion for us to be better as a city, and I can see us getting there. And
Hmm.
it's not just the people who are those 12,000, it's the people who are marginalized and close to being in that part of that 12,000 as well.
Now, Yeah, and we know that housing affordability is one of the biggest pressures facing Toronto families and individuals. We know Toronto could be very expensive and very hard to sometimes afford, basic needs. How
Yep.
does housing insecurity affect persons' mental health and well-being, as we spoke it? And what are your ideas in regards to or your opinion in regards to the cost of living, and if you have any ideas decreasing our cost of living,
Uh,
our plans, as to
well,
say.
yeah, yeah. I think the investment in any kind of supportive housing is important. I think the investment, and that goes for cooperatives. It goes for creative solutions in and around providing rental units. Yeah, Toronto Community Housing is also another one that that kind of investing in not only maintaining the present housing stock but also building new. So those are sort of like lower income tier of housing that's required, and the city has to be keen on investing in that. When
Mhm.
you're talking about affordability in a city, you also have to look at, the present freezing of the TTC fare is a fantastic measure of allowing people great way to get around in an economic fashion. Bringing in the bike share that they've brought in is another really economical way for people to move around effectively in a small urban setting in that last mile after the public transportation. The
Mhm.
housing issue this is not just a Toronto issue. This is very much a Canada wide issue.
Country, yeah.
The challenge is across the board. Um, the we definitely need to be building housing. What we need to be building with it, as I talked to earlier in our conversation here, was in addition to building single apartments. So like when I say single, like single room apartments, you need to be building two, 3 room bedroom apartments so that you have people actually wanting to live in that kind of environment in a rental capacity, so that people can see a path forward from moving from a bachelor to a 1 bedroom to a 2 bedroom to a 3 bedroom as
Yeah, you'll
as
see
their
some
life expands.
progress. Yeah.
Yeah, right. But like the most recent developments that have gone in approximate to me, 2/3 of the rental units that are being offered are bachelor and single bedroom.
Mhm.
So it's sort of here's your room. Whereas
Yeah.
if you have an opportunity as someone who like it's not there's going to be more and more people who are choosing to rent as opposed to
Mhm.
buying a home. If you have the opportunity to, you're renting and you meet someone and they have a rental and you have a rental and you say, well, let's get a bigger rental between the two of us. And then you get a bigger rental and then you have family and okay, we'll get a bigger rental.
Mhm.
And then the kids, move away and then you get a smaller rental and the ability to expand and contract
Mhm.
without your rent going crazy, it would be something that would definitely increase our affordability as a city.
Absolutely. And this is what draws me to your campaign, James, and what really interests me and compels me about you as a city councilor. Um, and you have your campaign talks a lot about thoughtful development.
Yes.
What does that actually mean in practical terms? Explain that to the people.
Yeah. Um, I, so one of the things that's differentiating me from other candidates who are running right now is that I've actually worked for the city.
Yes.
So I've seen how the city can do things from the inside, and I know how to keep that momentum going as a city staffer and as a city councilor. I'll be able to do the same thing of being
Mhm.
able to not only bring in, um, housing's great, but as I said, you need to have housing. That's great. That's great. Let's start with that.
Mhm.
You need to have the things that go with housing to make it fantastic.
Yes.
And the more that I can walk to everything that I need, the better. So they have a great Go stop over here at Danforth. Danforth Go's phenomenal.
Mhm.
It's right by Main Station, so I can intersect with the Go and go down to Union or Exhibition.
Mhm.
I can jump on the subway and I can go to Scarborough Town Center. I can go all over the place. So
Mhm.
that's great. So we have some public transportation. Now I need the proper schools. I need a
Yes.
proximity to great schools, great parks, and I need that extra layer of I need childcare. Good access to childcare. I need access to seniors care. I need access to the nuts and bolts of the community services of libraries, community
Hmm.
centers, pools. And when you build those things all together and you get those vibrant, incredible parks and community centers and a really fun street festival and some trees and when you build all those things together and plan it out and say people need more than just houses. They need a great place to live. And that differentiation between,
Hmm.
oh, we're building housing. It's like, no, 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 that's a start. You need a great place to live,
Yeah.
not just a roof. I want a great neighborhood. I want a vibrant neighborhood that has restaurants and all those things that we talked about because that is how you get an area that blossoms. And when you live in an area that is blossoming and growing and expanding and it has all those things, that's where people want to be. And they feel like they're part of something I lived in this area in this
Yeah.
time and it was a great part to be. And that's where you want to really get your growth going.
Absolutely. Now, how do we build more housing while still protecting the character and needs of existing communities?
Well, right now, I mean, the challenge of we're getting a lot of housing imposed upon us.
Hmm.
So there's the Ontario Land Tribunals overturned all kinds of city planning and just builders are going a little wild with there's an example. I'll give you two examples.
Hmm.
One is on Woodbine Avenue, where the in 2022 the proposal was for 3 stories, an apartment
Right.
building with 3 stories, and now just got approved for 11 stories. Another example is on Main Street. Once again, approved for originally surrounded by 2 stories, and now they're bringing in 11 stories. So they're bringing in units, they're bringing in density, but we're not planning any of those other secondary pieces.
Like as you're speaking, yeah, as you're
Yeah,
talking about
so
with the schools
so
and the other.
I mean, right now the city is getting overruled by the province continually. So we're having housing imposed upon us, which it's not the same as planning. It's not like
That's
saying
right.
to your local community, okay, hey, we're very fortunate we live in this area where there's single family homes and on the major street we're going to say something 6 stories. And yeah, great, we'll bring in 6 stories and we're creating, totally other end of the spectrum where we're saying, we're going to bring in 11 stories, 14 stories. And so that kind of housing is just sort of being pushed upon us.
James, it seems like you're a great guy, and it seems like you really want the best for our community. Just by knocking on doors and speaking to residents, it shows the type of person you are and the type of heart that you have. Now, what does it actually mean for a politician to listen? Explain that, because I know you're one of them.
Yeah, well, we're born with 2 ears and one mouth, so ideally, you're listening twice as much as you talk, and right now, I've surrounded myself with the smartest team I can find. I have been very actively taking advice from some really, really smart people who also share my values and making the city a better place.
Yeah.
My volunteer team today was out knocking on doors. We debrief at the end of our time when we go around, we knock on doors and we literally sit down and we talk for a few minutes. What did you hear?
Hmm.
What was resonating? What are people saying back to you? Because I mean, I can walk through a door and I can talk to somebody about what I care about. I can talk about parks and transportation and housing. But if someone there says, what really bothers me, I'm all ears
Hmm.
because I want to know what is bothering them. And when they say that stop sign at the bottom of my street, it's in the wrong spot. And I say, well,
Hmm.
where is it supposed to be? I need it, here. I need it moved 30 feet. Okay. This park right there at the bottom of my street. Okay. They, when you're in someone else's on someone else's street, you can assume that you know, but until you listen to them, you don't know what they are dealing with.
Hmm.
So it's important. It's definitely important to get that feedback at the door. It is invaluable when you have good, honest conversations about what the city can do and what the city can do
Hmm.
better. And yeah, I spend a lot of my day listening to what people have to say.
Yes. Now, that brings us right back to the whole theme of this series. So we spent this entire season asking what happens before someone reaches the trigger point. All these things that we discuss are matters that we need to know, or that we need to have, or we need to be comfortable with knowing, because these are things that involve community. So, if you had the power to change one thing in Toronto that could prevent people from ever reaching that breaking point, what would you change, James?
One thing, I could just get one thing to prevent people from reaching that trigger point.
You can name
Um,
many things if you want. It's up to you.
yeah, yeah. Well, um, it, I can't narrow it down to one thing that I think has driven people to get to that point.
Mhm.
I think the the simplicity of what sometimes people ask of you as a politician, like, you know, solve this problem and tell me it's
Yeah,
going to all be okay.
right.
I I really understand that getting to solutions requires sometimes complex answers. And you, as I said to you a couple times throughout here, you've asked me some really good questions. They're very concise, and there's no flick the switch for some of these things.
Yes.
The change that's required, the optimism that's required within government to really bring about positive change takes a lot of elbow grease. It
Mhm.
takes a lot of sticking to your guns
Mhm.
to say, hey, we're going to make the city better, but it's going to be a grind. There's no go and turn that big, on off switch to say,
Right.
we're flicking this switch and it's going to be better. It takes improving so many things, and to get there, and there's going to be detractors when I get elected. There's going to be people who don't like my style, but I can tell you that as someone who likes to work hard, likes to listen, and is very optimistic about our city, I'm also willing to say that, let's dig in here and let's make this work,
Mhm.
and let's make it work for everyone in the ward and everyone that we can in the city. And it's going to be, you're going to be pushing, like, we're going to be really pushing to make it a better city. And it's a challenge. It's a great challenge. It's part of what, gives us this limited amount of time that we have on,
Mhm.
limited amount of time that we have to make the city and the world a better place. And you have to work hard to do it. And so I can't give you a single thing, a single one thing that I would
Mhm.
tell you that would make us get there, because there's so many wonderful things along the way that we can improve. And
Mhm.
I really am optimistic that we'll get there.
It's a great answer. It may even take generations, but as long as we start the work and get the process going and continue to talk about these things like we're doing today, I think that's a beginning.
Yeah, and we're way past the beginning. Like, we have
Yeah.
to remember that we are so fortunate to be living in Toronto.
Right.
Like, you look at this planet and you're like, we get to live here. Like,
Yeah.
there's no
It's
one.
beautiful.
It's beautiful. There's no
Yeah.
one fleeing from here. We're not in a dictatorship. We're not getting bombed.
Yeah.
We're not dealing with a, you know,
Hurricanes and tornadoes,
yeah. Like,
and we have it good. We do.
right. Let's start from
Yeah.
that point. Our hockey team has kept us in misery since '67, but, like, we still have, we've
We've
won
won an
the
NBA
Raptors
championship.
championship. We've
Yeah.
won, we've won Blue
World
Jays titles.
Series.
We've got an incredible art scene in this city. From a music standpoint, it's a wonderful place to be. Our park system is world class. Our transportation system will get back to being world class. From an actual, like, this is a great place to be. We're in a great spot. like a
Yes,
great spot. So we've already, we're already standing on the shoulders of giants there. Let's just make it that much better.
I like that.
And let's continue to look at it and be the envy of, not only of the province, but of the country, of the, the globe, where people say, sure, I was in Toronto and it was phenomenal. Like
Mhm.
that is the best that we can do, is just continue to make it phenomenal, blowing people's expectations right out of the water.
Man, that's awesome. James, I appreciate you so much for coming on to Therapy Hub. Is there anything you would like to say to the people? Any shout outs? Anybody that you would like to
Yeah, yeah. I guess, um, I'm gonna talk to someone on your show who, maybe they tune into you because they appreciate your positivity, and they've been able to catch up on some of mine, and hopefully we've been able to uplift our community and make it a better
yes.
place. And I always like to, give a shout out to just the people who come before us, who have made this a better city.
Mhm.
And I really appreciate you having me on, because you are clearly making your dent, as I'm trying to make this a better a better planet, a better city, a better ward.
Mhm.
I am running for council in October. I really hope that people consider this conversation and just what I have to say about what I'm aiming to do to make the city better. I posted all of my information on my website, jamesdan.ca. All the information that I put forward to say this is what my actual plan is. Here's how I see making the city a better place. And once again, I want to thank you for this opportunity. It was really enjoyable. Thank you,
No problem, and you said it's James
James.
Dan.ca, right?
Yeah, yeah,
James
two
Dan.
N's. You got it.
I'm gonna put it on
jamesdan.ca.
the I'm gonna put it here on the screen so people can take a look at it, and then they can go
Awesome.
ahead and look at your website and learn a little bit more about you. As you see there, it's jamesdan.ca. Is that correct? Did I spell it the right way, James?
You got it. Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
awesome, awesome.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, James, and it was a pleasure speaking with you. We're gonna talk soon. We'll keep in touch for sure.
Awesome. Okay. Have a great night.
All right, cheers.
Thanks. Bye bye.
Bye. Ladies and gentlemen, that was James Dan, our city councilor for Ward 19 candidate. Um, so, James, great individual, great person. I enjoy speaking to him. And as you hear from him, genuinely his approach and what he wants to do for our city and what he has already done for the city, he's done amazing work. Today's conversation wasn't just simply about politics. Okay. And it wasn't just something, it was something way much more bigger than that. What kind of communities are we creating? These are the type of topics that we got to think and that we got to keep continuously in our head while we're on our mind, sorry, while we are dealing with these issues or these everyday battles in life. Because before the anger, before the violence, before the breaking point, there's usually a story. And sometimes if we listen early enough, we can change the ending. I'm Darue the Rue. And remember, stop the violence, start the healing, and keep the love. All right. Till the next time I see you, peace and love.